Hi, I'm Dr. Leticia Nogueira, and I'm a researcher at the American Cancer Society. My first job outside of my PhD program was a cancer prevention postdoctoral fellow at the National Cancer Institute. One of the reasons I applied to that job is that as part of being a postdoc in this program, you had the opportunity to get a Master's of Public Health, which I was really interested in doing because during my PhD program, one of the things that I found out about myself is that I needed to see the results of my research or the implications of my research be more readily implemented. And I thought that working with epidemiology and populational sciences would be a great way to do that. The best career advice I received as a PhD student, I think, came from my mentor at the time when I was thinking about changing my field of research. I was getting my PhD in molecular biology and I was thinking about moving more towards epidemiology. And his advice was don't be afraid to change at any point in your career. If you feel passionate about something, you should chase that. You should always be excited about your work. And I think it was a great advice. I ended up changing from molecular biology to epidemiology and then health services research. And I couldn't be happier with what I'm doing right now and the types of opportunities that I have. And I think that if I had been afraid or if I had listened to other people saying, well, we put all of this work into this PhD program, are you going to switch fields? I probably wouldn't have done that. And in the end, everything that I learned throughout my PhD turned out to be quite useful, coming with a different perspective to a different field. So I think it was the best advice I've ever received. Yes, so strategies once you get the job and you start the job. Um, I was always volunteering for every project that I thought was even remotely related to something I was interested in, mainly to get that experience. And as you start moving up, you might not have so much hands-on opportunities as you start managing other people. And I always thought it was important to get at least a few projects that I would really get my hands on and get the type of experience to understand the ins and outs of how everything at each institution works. So I thought volunteering for projects was always a good way to get to know the job functions, but also the culture at the institution you just joined. Applying for different jobs, especially when they're a little bit outside your background, can be challenging and intimidating. So I think that one of the things I did was read the job description and try to, in my head, make those connections about, in the end, it's all about problem solving, right? So how could my skills get to the type of everyday problems or the priorities or the mission that this organization has? And it has really helped me also tailor what part or which one of the items in this 10-page CV is more important for this exact job application. Don't just submit the same one. Read the job description, read the mission of the institution you're applying to, and see what items of your experience are the most relevant in this space, and then highlight those and select those to be a more summarized resume if that's what the application is asking for. There is always something that you can contribute. Don't forget that there's always something you can contribute to the position, and coming from a different field, you have a different perspective, which can be very much useful in these positions. First, all of my projects are related to health disparities and how these can be addressed by policy changes. One of the ones I am most excited about is the overlap of climate change and some of the structural racism, social determinants of health, and how that impacts cancer outcomes. So this started when I was working at the Texas State Health Department. One of the health registries I was directing was the emergency response. And on August 24, 2017, Harvey hit, and I was able to witness just how big of an impact a hurricane has on individuals that have been diagnosed with cancer. It wasn't the first time Houston had been impacted by a hurricane, but Harvey was different because of climate change. It moved slower and it had a higher water capacity, so it stalled over Houston, and then it rained, and it rained, and it rained, and everything flooded, and the hospital's backup generators flooded. And so once I started working in the American Cancer Society, I proposed that we evaluate the impact of hurricanes on individuals who have been diagnosed with cancer. And from that, ended up having several different projects, and really a family of projects, and a new research track looking at the intersection of climate change and several different vulnerabilities, our racial identity, our gender identity, our access to resources, and climate change among people who have been diagnosed with cancer. So that's one of the ones that I think I'm most proud of, most excited about, and also don't think that if I had had a straightforward academic career, or even if I hadn't had this perspective of growing up in a country that is not as sheltered from the impacts of climate change, that is more of an everyday reality, really being attuned to the needs of different people. So being an underrepresented type of researcher really helped me see, and with my background experiences, this association that climate change has among individuals who have been diagnosed with cancer, which is really not a field that has been studied that much. And it turned out to be one of the things I'm most excited to work on. I think that when you have these lived experiences and you honor who you are and your identity and your background, things just become very clear of what's important for you and how you create your career, your research portfolio, whatever you think that is. So one of the hot topics when I started working was genetic associations for cancer risk. And that has always intrigued me because, one, it's not modifiable, and two, race has no biologic foundation, right? So race is a social construct, and having to complete my PhD in a different language and all these other little setbacks or challenges really made me think, even when you're trying to communicate with your health provider in a different language, or when we know, for example, that where you live is more important than your genetic background. So your zip code is more important than your genetic code. I was always more focused on the type of conditions around you that determine your health risks and your health outcomes. So that turned out to be a strategy that paid off, as I think hindsight is 2020. After 2020, we have all learned a whole lot more about the impact of structural racism on several different types of outcomes. And I think that there's been a greater recognition and just being guided by or honoring who you are and the way you see the world, because a lot of times due to exclusionary networks, professional networks, voices from underrepresented researchers are not heard. You can hear sometimes, oh, this is not science. It is science. And I think that there's been a growing recognition of just how important that is for health outcomes. So I think that don't let anybody silence your lived experience or your identity, and let that be a strategy for how you interpret and select your position or your research results or your career or research portfolio. I think that we need more of those diverse perspectives in every field. The best advice I would give for grad students or postdocs right now would be to follow your heart. Don't be afraid of change. And everything you learned is yours. You're carrying that everywhere you go, and you're bringing that perspective and that knowledge, and knowledge is power, to your new position. So don't be afraid of change and follow your heart.